Club football is back again, and we won't have an international break until March now. Isn't that a relief for some of you? Although the international break this time was actually quite exhilarating, wasn't it? Anyway, welcome to the weekend recap. I'm Adrian, and make sure you subscribe if you're new around here. Augsburg kicked the weekend off with a bang as they took on Bayern Munich, and it was the relegation zone occupants, well, former relegation zone occupants, that got the big win. Bayern have shown their bellies a couple of times this season within the first 12 matches, and the only question is whether their rivals in the league title race will capitalize on their blunders. We'll get to that later, as first, let's give some credit to Augsburg. There was a lot of talk of how so many of Germany's players were called away for international duty, some of them playing in very important matches, while Augsburg's lineup, or at least 9 out of 11 of their lineup, were resting the entire break. There's something to that, of course, but give credit to Augsburg for how they defended and how they took advantage of that. Bayern just didn't have it in them. They didn't have that spark, didn't generate too many great chances in my opinion, and the XG kind of confirms that as well. Slightly underperforming on this day, but not too much, and look a little light in the midfield as Sabitzer is finding it hard to establish himself, as he did about 2 years ago at Leipzig. Nagelsmann himself has commented on how he isn't playing like the guy he knew from Leipzig, not yet, at least. So 2-1 win for Augsburg. Would anyone take advantage of the drop points from Bayern? Yes indeed they would. It took Borussia Dortmund some time, and they looked a bit shaky in the process, but they got there in the end. Once again, without Erling Haaland, Daniel Malen was able to pick up his first Bundesliga goal for Borussia Dortmund, which is a bit hard to believe, isn't it? Slow start for him, his only other goal contribution being against Sporting back in September, that of course in the Champions League. Stuttgart were able to get an equalizer as Massimo beat his former teammate Kobel in the Dortmund goal, made Hummels look a bit silly, a bit pedestrian there, didn't he? But late on, Marco Reus got the winner after he played through Torgan Hazard, and while Torgan Hazard's attempt was saved, Reus poked the rebound in. He's on a great run, as he has scored in 3 successive matches for Dortmund now. 2-1 the final for Borussia Dortmund. Union Berlin got a 2-0 win with goals from Taiwo Awoniyi and Chris Trimmel as Union continue to fly high in the Bundesliga, struggling a bit in the Conference League, but not out of it just yet. A couple of wins and they'll be okay. Awoniyi has scored 8 goals already now, as he capitalized on a huge mistake at the back from Hertha and then slotted it past the keeper. Looking good. RB Leipzig looked incredibly poor against Hoffenheim, as they didn't manage to get a single attempt on goal. A single attempt on goal from just 5 attempts on goal, by the way, which is poor, isn't it? I mean, Hoffenheim could have had plenty more goals as well, as the likes of Bebu and Grilic had attempts ring off the post, so it could have been worse for them. Leipzig are a bit strange this season, hard to identify how they're going to do, really. And Gladbach beat Greuther Fürth 4-0, Leverkusen with a 1-0 win over Bochum, Wolfsburg held by Bielefeld, and Freiburg, they lost another game. So the table looks as follows. Bayern's lead is down to just 1 point, Freiburg in third after that 2-0 loss, just a little bit ahead of Leverkusen. In La Liga, most eyes would have been on Xavi in his first match as manager of FC Barcelona, and while there were some small improvements here and there, mainly how Barcelona looked in the counter-pressing, it wasn't the mass revolution that perhaps fans had hoped for over that international break, but it's just a matter of adjusting expectations. Xavi needs a lot of time with this team to completely change their mindset and how they play. 1-0 win. Bit of a fortunate penalty in some ways, or at least a little bit soft for some, but the important things will be the 3 points to get Xavi started out, and he can continue to make improvements on the general play and his mark on the squad from there. And no, Dani Alves wasn't in the squad just yet. Atletico Madrid had a difficult match at the Wanda Metropolitano as they took on pesky Osasuna. This past week it was confirmed that once again João Felix will be out for about a month. And I mean, they must be growing tired of that at Atletico, as is he, I'm sure, as it's really making it near impossible for him to settle at the club. Constantly on the sidelines from injury. I mean, it's Dembele-esque at this point. But at least Simeone had Llorente and Lamar back in the lineup, and it was Llorente who combined with Correa to set up Griezmann, but his attempt rolled wide of the goal. Great chance there, but better defending from Osasuna. It would take until the 86th minute when Carrasco put in a corner that Philippe headed past the keeper for the winner. A save from Oblak at the other end kept them 1-0 ahead. And then a shot off the post from Carrasco from the halfway line with the keeper up for the corner. But they still got it done. Good performance from Atleti this week. Plenty of draws in La Liga as Villarreal, of course they drew. Of course they did this weekend. They were up against Celta Vigo. Levante and Athletic Club drew 0-0 and Sevilla drew 2-2 with Deportivo Alaves. Getafe, however, previously in 20th, got a massive 4-0 victory against another side that will be in the relegation conversation. Sounds like a segment of the show. Relegation conversation. But yeah, they beat Cadiz 4-0. Real Madrid had a bit of a laborious first half at times, this despite leading 2-1 at the half thanks to 2 assists from Kroos to Asensio and Nacho Fernandez. A mistake from Vinicius allowed Granada to pull one back, but Vinicius was far improved in the second half. His trickery was too much for the Granada defenders to deal with, as shown when he had them on strings and drew a second yellow from Manchu to get him sent off. Prior to that, however, some unbelievable stuff from Benzema and then from Modric had put the ball on a plate for Vinicius to make it 3-1. A goal from Ferland Mendy made it 4. Poor week for Ferland Mendy, plenty of negative attention surrounding him given the leaks, by the way. But anyway, a commanding victory from Real Madrid. With Real Betis cruising to a victory over Elche, it came down to Real Sociedad's big match against Valencia to see what the final table was at the end of this match day, but I'll let editor Adrian take over there. Yeah, it was a pretty ill-tempered affair. There was 11 yellow cards and 1 red, but it ended 0-0. So, the standings in Spain still read as Real Madrid on top, just 1 point behind is Real Sociedad, and on 28 points is Sevilla. Atleti on 26, they're in 4th. Pretty tight race so far. What better place to start in Serie A than Fiorentina hosting AC Milan? Incredible atmosphere in this one, which was matched with an incredible spectacle. To start, Milan keeper Tatarusanu made a horrible mess of a cross, leading to an easy goal for Duncan of Fiorentina. Then former Milan player Riccardo Saponara with a brilliant goal on the stroke of halftime, curling it into that corner. Easy little assist for Vlahovic to pick up there, before Vlahovic made it 3-0 after an hour as he rounded the keeper. Finally, we saw some life from Zlatan, who missed the easiest chance Milan had all match in the first half, but capitalized on a mistake after 62 minutes, then made it 3-2 as he linked up with Theo Hernandez. Dusan got his second as Fiorentina punished Theo for lingering on the ball, only for a Venuti own goal to make it a thrilling end to the match. 4-3 Fiorentina over Milan. Just a whole lot of fun to take in. Lots of individual errors from both sides, really. Vlahovic on 10 goals now, level with Ciro Immobile with the lead in Italy. Atalanta looked like their old selves as they handed Spezia a 5-2 beatdown on Saturday morning. Well, morning for me at least. After going 1-0 down at home against Spezia after just 11 minutes, Atalanta scored 5 unanswered goals to get the win as Nzola bookended this match with goals for Spezia, consolation goals, of course. Lazio and Juve faced off at the Stadio Olimpico, and 2 penalties from Leonardo Bonucci gave Juve the 2-0 win. Sarri losing to his old club as his current side have some checkered form, don't they? A win, a draw, a win, etc. Venezia are seemingly finding a bit of form in the league. They are 3 matches undefeated, having won 2 in a row now. Following their victory over Bologna on Sunday, the American international Gianluca Busio, who signed from Sporting KC, providing the assist to Okereke for what would be the winner in this one. Inter versus Napoli was a great spectacle, wasn't it? Especially that second half, man. My goodness. Was that fun? But anyways, after Zielinski put Spalletti's side ahead at the Giuseppe Meazza, a Koulibaly handball gave Çalhanoğlu an opportunity from the spot and he buried it to tie it up at 1-1. Then it looked as though he had scored an Olimpico, a goal directly from a corner kick, but replays show that Perisic had nodded the ball toward goal. Ospina just couldn't keep it out, and Inter went into the half with a 2-1 lead. Great half from them, really, that they built upon in the second half as Tucu Correa set up Lautaro for 3-1. Dries Mertens scored an absolute banger in the 78th as Napoli pushed and pushed and pushed for the equalizer. They came close as well. Mario Rui had a strike that bounced off of the crossbar. Mertens blazed one over from close range. I mean, there were opportunities for Napoli to tie it up, but none were taken, and they end up losing their first match of the Serie A season, 3-2 away. Napoli remain on top of the table despite the loss, thanks in part to Milan losing as well, and Inter have now gained on them. They sit 4 points back now. And the place to start in the Premier League is pretty obvious as well. Not many new takes on Ole from me, as I've let my opinion be known on him time and time again. I called for his head a couple seasons ago, but I put an end to that as it feels wrong calling for someone to be sacked. But for this season, well, I didn't call for his head necessarily. I kept that same energy in that it wasn't good enough from him that he'd reached the ceiling, and that the previous things that were working for him were no longer working. And the identity of this squad was unrecognizable, unless that identity was mediocrity. There's been investment in this club, and when Ole had to deliver on the faith of the board, he was incapable of doing so. 3 wins in their last 10 matches across all competitions, a 4-1 loss against Watford in which United looked just as abject as they did against far superior opposition like Liverpool and Manchester City. That's a huge problem. Inexcusable stuff, and United have a lot of work to do to rebuild the no doubt shaken confidence of some of these players. And Michael Carrick has a lot to improve upon tactically. Finding a defined approach will be the first place to start. Overall, I feel for Ole in some ways because a board with any brains to it wouldn't have signed what was ultimately a caretaker manager that took care of the squad for too long. And you get caretaker levels of results given the stature of United, and they didn't win a single piece of silverware under him. He started great, peaking at the PSG win in the Champions League in that first season, and then had a poor finish to that very same season. But he was already signed up as the permanent manager at that point. And then this past summer, they give him an extension? I mean, it doesn't make sense. This is just what happens when you trust a manager who has an uninspiring record in your country, as Cardiff were terrible under him, and he saw them get relegated, and then a couple of Norwegian titles to make things look a little bit better, but even then, he hadn't won a Norwegian title since prior to managing Cardiff, one being the Norwegian Cup in 2013. Unfortunately for United, they no longer have Conte as an option, and they'll have to get creative with either their selection of a caretaker manager, as they said they will do before signing on someone at the end of the season. Now, one thing you could never question surrounding Ole is his love for United and how much of a class act he is. Not that anyone ever questioned that, of course. But man, the club doing an exit interview with him, that's kind of rough in my opinion. I mean, they had the guy crying, but yeah, he showed that he's still a class act. Shout out to Watford though, they were excellent once again as they've shown they can attack under Ranieri. There was that 5-2 comeback against Everton, and now this, great stuff from them. Manchester City had the opposite kind of weekend from their crosstown rivals as they once again dominated their opposition, Everton, in every single way, coasting to a controlled 3-0 victory over Rafa Benitez's side. The first goal was just dripping in class as Cancelo played a sublime ball into the box with the outside of his boot, which curled behind the defenders and was finished beautifully from Raheem Sterling. Good match from Sterling here. Even, you know, with his indecision in front of goal at times, that one where he should have just buried it and he allowed Pickford to recover, really. I mean, he should have had 2 more goals, probably, but I mean, that's just Sterling as a player, isn't it? Rodri converted an absolute missile of a strike from the outside of the box. The ball probably would still be flying upward and into orbit had the net not been there to catch it. My God. City were scoring some beauties out there, and of course, Bernardo rounded out the scoring as he latched onto a loose ball in the box to make it 3-0. Speaking of being in control, Chelsea looked brilliant against Leicester this weekend, who never really lay a glove on them, did they? The wing-backs of Chilwell and Reece James provided assists to give Chelsea a quick 2-0 lead after just 28 minutes, and in the second, 2 substitutes in Hakim Ziyech and Christian Pulisic linked up for the American to make it 3-0, and that was the final score. Now, with all the rumors of Pulisic wanting to leave Chelsea, it will be interesting to see how things go from now until January, the most interesting of which being whether Pulisic can stay healthy or not. Brentford and Newcastle United played out a thrilling 3-3 draw, as did Burnley and Crystal Palace. Teams really throwing death blows at each other. 12 goals from just 2 fixtures. Love to see that. Dean Smith, back at work, got a win with his new club, Norwich. It's going to be a massive effort to try to save them from relegation, but at least he isn't too far from safety to begin with. Norwich are on 8 points now, thanks to him. And his former club, Aston Villa, got a great 2-0 win at home against Brighton as Steven Gerrard made his return to the Premier League. It took them a while, and they certainly surrendered possession and tried to hurt Brighton in transition, but in the final 10 minutes of the match, a goal from Watkins won it, and a second from Tyrone Mings put it beyond doubt. On top of that, Bruno Lage's Wolves are starting to really take shape, aren't they? They got a somewhat surprising 1-0 win against Moyes' West Ham boys after they were dominant in the middle third of this match. Time-wise, that is. West Ham with great pushes for goals at the beginning and at the end of the match, but the rest was all Wolves in my opinion. Who else but Raul Jimenez to get the winner for Wolves, by the way, set up by Daniel Podence. Tottenham had a terrible first half. Expected goals was 0.06, and they had to claw themselves back into the match after their poor first half as they trailed 1-0 at home against Leeds. Daniel James with his first Premier League goal for his new side. I can't imagine the rollicking the Spurs players got at the half because they looked a completely different side in the second. The hustle, something which Reguilón spoke of prior to the game, how tired they were from Conte's training sessions. The hustle was back, and Højbjerg finished off a cutback from Lucas Moura to make it 1-1, and then Reguilón finished off a rebound from the post to make it 2-1 Spurs with the win. Conte's first in the league as the Spurs boss. These results looking terrible still. Just the one win, just above relegation right now. And finally, Liverpool versus Arsenal was a bit explosive, wasn't it? But Arteta showed more fight on the sidelines when he was trying to square up to Klopp than his side did in this match. Well, I mean, that's not fair. They were good in the first 10 minutes or so, but after that, Liverpool took control at Anfield and never let go. Mane made it 1-0 in the 39th minute, and with the assist from Alexander-Arnold, I mean, this man has found his delivery once again this season. Much better from him and the rest of the squad, no? On the other side of halftime, Jota made it 2-0. Mane set up Salah later in the half, and even Minamino got in on the act. Whenever they faced a decent opposition, Arsenal crumble. Not so much crumble, but it serves as a good barometer of their level and how far they still have to go. Top 6? I don't know. Maybe 5th. Maybe they can pull off 5th or 6th. 2 assists for Alexander-Arnold, a goal and an assist for Mane. Salah scores what was his league-leading 11th of the campaign, his closest adversaries being Jamie Vardy and his teammate Sadio Mane. Chelsea remained top of the table on 26 points, 3 ahead of Manchester City and 5 ahead of Liverpool. With their loss, West Ham lose some ground, but luckily for them, Arsenal was also on the wrong end of a result. Tottenham could cause some problems, couldn't they? They're right there. Alright guys, I know Lionel Messi scored his first Liga goal this weekend, so shout out to him, but we won't be doing the European tour this time. I have far too much content to produce for you guys this week, so I best be off. Thanks so much for watching, and see you soon. Ciao.